This morning, Mark has a new piece in Vanity Fair entitled Joe Biden's 2024 Prospects May Be Dicey, but There's a Plan B. Non-Trump GOP-led tickets in swing states. And you outline, Mark, a plan by the group No Labels, of which you helped co-found in 2010, writing in part, quote, "The question I've asked Democrats repeatedly over the last year or so is, if we get to next May or June and Trump is beating Biden in the polls by double digits, what's the plan B?" The response? Crickets. But there is another option. That is, No Labels makes good on its pledge to ensure that Trump is not elected by denying him victory in one or more of the key swing states, by putting a Republican No Labels candidate on the ballot, but only in those pivotal states. Imagine a favorite son or daughter approach. In other words, backing a willing Republican who is particularly popular in a battleground state. Mathematically, all you have to do is affect the outcome in a couple of these states to tilt the results in Biden's favor.
So, Mark, this is what I haven't understood.
That scares me. Why does that scare me?
I guess you want Donald Trump to win.
No,
I don't know.
I don't.
No, so this is what I haven't understood about all the attacks No Labels has been under, because I've been hearing from them for a year. Maybe we put Paul Ryan in Wisconsin. Maybe we put Mitt Romney, like you said before, in Nevada.
Or Utah, where he's very popular.
Or Utah, where he's very, very popular in either one of those states. Maybe we get Tom Ridge in Pennsylvania.
Pat McCrory in North Carolina.
Pat McCrory.
Doug Ducey, Arizona.
Yeah. By the way, you don't have to
He's got this thought out.
You just need one or two. Just one or two of those swing states to take votes away from Trump.
Also, they don't have to get 20%.
No.
They have to get 3%.
Yes, exactly.
And it's over. Yeah. I mean, listen, Trump's trying to do this right now. Was trying to do it with RFK Jr. until he figured out that RFK Jr. actually hurts him more than he hurts Biden.
Yeah, so listen, I supported Joe Biden in 20. I thought he was the right man for the moment. I disagree with the fact that he's running now, and not because I don't think he's done a good job. I think he has. I think there's lots of good Democrats that would be great candidates against Donald Trump. There's a great bench out there, and I don't think he alone can do it. I wish he'd done the Pelosi, taken the gold watch, preserve his legacy. But I've said to Democrats all along, if we get to next May and Donald Trump is ahead by anything, much less double digits, what's the plan B? And right now, in the last month, Donald Trump has lost 11 points of support among Democrats. And this is when he's doing arguably Biden is losing by 11 points among his own party at a time when he's provided international leadership in Israel. You can say the economy's doing pretty good, done lots of great things. So you think it's going to get better by next year when he's older? I don't think so. What's the plan B?
Isn't this where a lot of winning candidates have stood in the polls this far before an
election? Not that we're 8 years old.
No,
it's a problem, Mika. Listen, I like him, but they're younger people that they could have stepped up and didn't. But here's the point. If we get there and Donald Trump's ahead, what is the plan B? And the No Labels has said very clearly, despite people like Third Way and the Lincoln Project indicting their character and motives, they said, if we can't do the moonshot and win, we're not going to do it. Right? And it's improbable. But it's not impossible. It's happened before. Third parties have won. Lincoln won as a third-party candidate. Perot was winning by 39% before he went crazy. But if they get to that point and it looks like Biden gets 35, Trump gets 35, they get 20, they pull it down. Or they can do good on their pledge that Joe Lieberman said explicitly, we're going to do all we can to ensure that Trump won't get reelected. You just take 5 states, 3 states, 4 or 5 states, and put up a No Labels Republican candidate in those states. Favorite son or favorite daughter,
and it makes a lot of sense.
And Trump loses those swing states. Biden wins.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, let me ask you really quickly about the economy. Come on, it's growing at over 4%. That's like 1980s stuff. That's crazy. But, Trump was bragging about, getting close to 3%, right? And you look at his international leadership, and he's down 11 points in the Democratic Party. mean, I'd ask you what the White House is saying, but the White House doesn't know because these numbers just keep going south.
They just keep going south. And they tried to really take ownership of the economy with this Bidenomics push in recent months. It didn't move the needle at all. In fact, the voters, poll after poll, suggests that voters are less content with the economy. They're more worried about it, even though the metrics, for the most part, are pretty good. And it is. There's some rumblings here, and no one is taking the Dean Phillips primary challenge seriously, but it's what he represents. So there is an unhappiness out there among Democrats about the president, despite a terrific record. So, Mara, let me put it to you. Why do you think there's such a disconnect? To Mark's point, the president has a pretty stellar record. I think most Democrats think he's done a good job. Poll after poll suggests a lot of Democrats don't want him to run again. Is it just age?
Yeah, I mean, I think that malaise is very real. There can be, I think, experiences in people's everyday lives that are not reflected in the polls. I maintain, for example, that the cost of housing, fears about sending children to school amid continuing gun violence, these things make us have a malaise about our politics in general. And then you have to look at who's in charge. And so most Americans aren't as engaged as we are in the how and the why. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate when they go into the polling booth. Because when they see, if they see Donald Trump's name on that ticket, you know, there's going to be a last minute push by many Democratic voters who are not reading necessarily the news every day. They're not engaged right now. They may not love Joe Biden, but if it's a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, a lot of people are going to be showing up. And I guess one of the questions that I had for you, though, Mark, was what is the evidence that a favorite son, for example, in a state like Wisconsin would draw votes from Donald Trump, but not from Joe Biden?
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, I think that if you're a Republican, a longtime Republican voter, you don't want to vote for Joe Biden, but you don't want to vote for Donald Trump. That's the voter. And all you need is 1 or 2%, as Joe said.
And by the way, I hear that so much from many Republicans.
There's lots of Republicans who just won't vote for Biden, but they don't want to vote for Trump, and they want to vote.
In my family that voted for Trump in 16, that voted for Trump in 20, even though he called me a murderer 12 times, not that I'm counting, who in 2022 and 2023 completely exhausted. Will not vote for him, will vote for any third-party candidate. So that's not showing up in the polls. But Maura, I take your point. I mean, there's so many times I've walked into a voting booth and I thought I was going to vote for somebody, even in this job, where I will talk about an election for like a year and a half, swear to God. Then I go, I'm starting to talk like Biden, swear to God. No lie.
No hyperbole.
My dad, what's that?
No hyperbole.
No hyperbole. my daddy told me, Joey. But I'll talk about an election for a year and a half. Think I'll know exactly what I'm going to do. I'll walk into the voting booth and I'll see the two names and I'll say, I can't vote for that person.
I mean,
people do that. That's the magic of democracy, isn't it?
Well, here's the other thing. I think you can get there, and I think it's a testable proposition. But the bottom line is that, as Lieberman said, if it's going to help Trump, we're not going to do it.
Right.
But how about a plan where maybe you have another option?
Right, Maura?
When Trump's ahead of Biden by 10 points?
It reminds me the third term of Michael Bloomberg. People in New York, as they exited the polling booth, the reporters were asking them, well, who did you vote for and why? I voted for Bloomberg. I'm a little depressed about it, but I did vote for him after all because he's doing a pretty good job. And so is that possible?
Among Democrats, I don't know. You don't like winning. You don't like historic amounts of legislation passed. You don't like a president who can navigate two major wars at the same time. Honestly, I don't understand it. And then the opponent
we can't even talk about this at home.
Indicted.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
This is not like he's running against a solid conservative Republican. So that's
I think also
wondering if people will.
I also, Jonathan, there are a lot of things that provide data analysts inside the White House no comfort. But that's another thing. Donald Trump is going to probably be tried in the Washington case. Mm-hmm. I don't know how he's not found guilty.
He's already been found to be
There's going to be a March 4th trial or close to that.
Right.
That judge is going to hold firm, and there's going to be a trial.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know how that's going to impact. But again, though, a year out, nobody knows.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one trial that there is an expectation will occur between now and the election. Now, we talked about this yesterday. Some in Trump world think that he should. Their thought is they show up this New York civil case to sort of desensitize that image, put Trump in a courtroom. So next year it won't be as shocking when he's in a courtroom again. Maybe that turns off fewer voters. We'll see if that plays any sort of role or not. With no idea if that will be effective. But that's sort of the theory here. But Rev, to Mara's point, to what Joe said a minute ago, no doubt, in the sanctity of the ballot box, people see that binary choice. But the thing that Democrats are starting to tell me is they're worried about getting their base to even go to the ballot box that day, to have the ability to have that binary choice. Because that's the theory of the case for the White House. That even people who may not love Joe Biden, they're going to see Donald Trump's name on there and go, nope, can't do that again, and go Biden. But they're core members of the Democratic base, young people, black voters, who at least per polling don't even want to show up that day.
I think what's going to drive a lot of them that right now being polled saying they're not coming out is the overreach of a Donald Trump and now Johnson, the speaker, with his opening act just showed us who he is going to give people a real clear view of what the choices are. And going to Mara's point, I think that when you look at when I've talked to people on my radio show, it's Call-In, so I talk to people every day. And I say to them, okay, Joe Biden, you think is too old, but he's done infrastructure, he's done inflation reduction, all that. Name me the Democrat that you think can do that. There is no name they can come up with.
Trump.
I mean, you cannot replace somebody with nobody. And I think that is going to work. But I think the biggest weapon the White House has is Donald Trump and now the speaker. They couldn't have chose a better cast of characters to run against in terms of turnout.
And maybe no labels plan B. All right, Mara Gay and Mark McKinnon.
I'm for the two Joes, Scarborough, Lieberman.
There you go.
Oh, God. Thank you both very much for being on. And